The transport ship hummed through the void of space, carrying its precious cargo of human diplomats toward the edge of known territory where first contact protocols would soon be tested in ways nobody anticipated. Lisa Monroe sat in the observation deck watching distant stars blur into streaks of light as their vessel pushed deeper into uncharted space. And she wondered what kind of beings they would encounter at the negotiation table. Because every species humanity had met so far had been either too primitive to communicate with or too mechanical to understand emotion. The mission brief had been clear enough to make her nervous, but vague enough to keep her guessing about what lay ahead. And Captain Stevens had only mentioned that the Vakari Empire controlled 12 solar systems and possessed technology that made human ships look like wooden boats compared to steel warships. 3 weeks into the journey, Lisa found herself standing beside her commanding officer, Commander Patricia Hill, when the first transmission came through from the Vakari homeworld, and what appeared on screen made every human in the command center go completely silent. The Vakari ambassador was female, at least in the sense that her body possessed curves and features that human biology recognized as feminine, but everything else about her screamed danger in a way that made Lisa's throat go dry. She stood at least 7 feet tall with skin that shimmered between deep purple and midnight blue, depending on how the light hit her, and her eyes glowed with an inner amber fire that seemed to pierce through the video screen directly into Lisa's soul. Her face was angular and sharp with high cheekbones that could cut glass and full lips that curved into something between a smile and a predatory grin, and her hair, if it could be called that, flowed down her back like liquid silver shot through with veins of crimson. But it was her body that made Lisa's heart pound against her ribs, because the Vakari wore minimal clothing that revealed powerful muscles rippling beneath alien skin, and curves that defied human proportions in ways that were both beautiful and terrifying. The ambassador muscles were visible beneath her skin, not bulky, but defined like a warrior who had trained every day of her life, and her movements held a fluid grace that suggested she could tear through steel with her bare hands if she chose to. Her voice came through the speakers low and rich like honey mixed with smoke, and when she spoke in perfect English, every human on the bridge felt the words resonate in their chest. Welcome humans to the edge of our territory. And I am Ambassador Zara of the Vakari Empire. And your presence here has been noted with great interest. Commander Hill cleared her throat and stepped forward, trying to maintain her professional composure, despite the fact that everyone could see her hands trembling slightly. We come in peace, Ambassador Zara, and we seek to establish diplomatic relations between our species and perhaps find common ground for mutual benefit. The alien woman tilted her head, and her glowing eyes seemed to focus directly on Lisa, even through the transmission, and a slow smile spread across those dangerous lips. Peace is such a fragile concept, Commander, but we shall see if your species has the strength to maintain it in our presence and prepare your delegation for surface landing, and we will meet face to face. The transmission cut out, leaving the bridge in stunned silence until someone finally whispered what everyone was thinking. Did she just threaten us or flirt with us? Both. Probably, Lisa muttered, and suddenly feeling way out of her depth. 2 days later, the human delegation landed on Vakari. Prime, and the moment the airlock opened, Lisa understood why every alien species in this sector either allied with the Vakari or stayed far away from their borders. The landing platform was carved from black stone that seemed to absorb light, and towering structures rose in every direction made from materials that shifted colors as clouds passed overhead. And everywhere Lisa looked, she saw Vakari warriors moving with that same predatory grace. The females were all tall and powerfully built, with bodies that combined feminine curves with warrior strength, and the males were even larger with broader shoulders and more pronounced muscle definition. But there was no mistaking who held the real power. Here Ambassador Zara approached with 6 guards flanking her, and up close she was even more intimidating than she had appeared on screen, and her skin rippled with colors that Lisa had never seen before, and her eyes blazed with intelligence, and something else that made Lisa pulse. Quicken, Commander Hill stepped forward, extending her hand in the universal gesture of greeting, and Zara looked at it for a long moment before reaching out and engulfing the human hand in her own. Larger grip. Your bones are so fragile, Zara said softly, and I could crush them without effort. And yet you offer your hand so bravely. It is a gesture of trust, Commander Hill replied, keeping her voice steady, and trust must begin somewhere. Zara released her hand and turned her attention to the rest of the delegation, and when those amber eyes locked onto Lisa, she felt like prey being examined by a predator, deciding whether to pounce or play. "And who is this small one?" Zara asked, and stepping closer until she towered over Lisa Monroe, diplomat and cultural liaison, Lisa managed to say, and refusing to step back even though every instinct screamed at her to run. Zara reached out and with one sharp nail traced a line down Lisa's cheek so gently it barely touched skin, but the gesture was unmistakably possessive and intimate. "You smell of fear and curiosity in equal measure, little human, and this pleases me greatly." The negotiations began in a grand hall where human delegates sat on one side of a massive table carved from single piece of crystal, and Vakari leaders sat on the other, and for 3 days they discussed trade routes and defensive pacts and cultural exchange programs. But Lisa noticed something strange happening beneath the formal discussions, and Zara seemed to be conducting a parallel negotiation, one that involved lingering glances and subtle touches and questions about human biology that had nothing to do with diplomacy. On the 4th night, Lisa found herself alone in the human quarters when the door chimed, and before she could respond, it slid open to reveal Zara standing in the doorway wearing even less than usual. Her outfit consisted of strips of dark fabric that wrapped around her body, highlighting rather than concealing, and her silver hair flowed loose around her shoulders and her eyes glowed brighter in the dim light. "Ambassador Zara," Lisa said, and standing up quickly. "And is something wrong with the negotiations?" Zara stepped inside and the door closed behind her, and she moved with that liquid grace until she stood close enough that Lisa could feel heat radiating from her alien skin. "Nothing is wrong with the negotiations, little human. But I find myself curious about something your delegation has not addressed." "What is that?" Lisa asked, and hating how breathless she sounded. "Your people speak of cultural exchange, and yet you hide your true nature behind formal words and diplomatic protocol. And so I have come to ask you directly, ask me what? Whether humans are as weak as they appear, or whether there is fire hidden beneath that soft skin." Lisa felt her face flush and she forced herself to meet those burning amber eyes. "And I assure you, Ambassador, that humans are far more resilient than we look." Zara's smile was all teeth and sharp edges and good, "because my people respect strength above all else and weakness is not tolerated in any form." She reached out and placed one large hand against Lisa's chest just above her heart, and her palm was hot against Lisa's skin through the thin fabric of her shirt. "Your heart races, little human, and tell me, is it fear or something else?" Lisa made a decision in that moment, one that would either cement an alliance or start an interstellar incident, and she placed her own small hand over Zara, much larger one. "Why can it not be?" Both Zara's laugh was low and rich, and it sent shivers down Lisa's spine. "And perhaps you humans are more interesting than I first believed." Over the following weeks, something shifted in the negotiations, and Zara began, including Lisa, in private discussions that went far beyond trade agreements, and she spoke of Vakari culture and history, and the warrior traditions that shaped their society. The Vakari valued strength but also cunning, and they respected beings who could face danger without flinching, and they were drawn to those who showed fire in their spirit. Lisa learned that Vakari females were the dominant force in their society, and they chose their mates based on worthiness and strength and the ability to stand beside them as equals rather than cower in fear. And she learned that Zara had been watching the human delegation not to assess their technology or military strength, but to determine whether humanity possessed the spirit necessary to survive in a dangerous galaxy. One evening, Zara took Lisa to a private balcony overlooking the Vakari capital, and the city blazed with lights that shifted through colors human eyes could barely process. "Your people are weak by our standards," Zara said in her voice softer than usual, "and your bodies break easily and your weapons are primitive and your ships are slow." Lisa felt a flash of defensiveness, but before she could respond, Zara continued, "And yet you came here anyway, and knowing you were outmatched and knowing we could destroy you without effort, and that takes a different kind of strength." She turned to face Lisa, and for the first time, there was something other than predatory hunger in her eyes. "The Vakari have conquered 12 systems through force, and But we have learned that conquest is hollow without allies who choose to stand beside us, and your species may be physically weak, but you have something we have been searching for.